Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the most casual episode of Progress with Us you'll probably ever watch. We've got nicotine, we've got caffeine, and we've got a bunch of questions because this is the episode where we will enter the top 1% of podcasts, which is a clip from Chris Williamson and Alex Hormozy where they said that 90% of podcasts don't make it past the fourth episode, and of the 10% that do, only 1% of them, 10% of them make it past the 20th episode, and this episode 21. So we just thought we'd do a little Q&A with a bit of caffeine.
I've even got sparkling water for the occasion.
Yeah, for a change. So we're just going to jump straight into it. We put out some stuff on our socials asking for questions from people about anything really, business, podcast, stuff to do with just being young people on the internet. So the first question is from someone from an inner circle that I'm in who says, what's it like doing something different from the majority of people your age?
It's a good question, to be fair. I think, to be honest, I feel like it's kind of now for us, it's quite normal. I wouldn't say it's, I don't know, thinking about it, different from everybody else. I think it's nice, it's quite refreshing, to be fair, because it's a big change from kind of like how it was before, I'd say like a year ago, where it was the same thing each week, going out, drinking, doing this and that. It's nice having something that's constantly changing, constantly meeting new people, just, I don't know, having a bit of variation and difference to what we're doing is just super nice, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just like the kind of, at the end of the day, we just do something different for work.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if we were to work 5 days a week, then we would literally just be doing something different for a career than some of the other people who are our age. But I think, what's it like doing something different from the majority of people our age? I think a lot of, like, especially like my family don't really understand what I do. And I still think a lot of people who we're friends with, they don't really understand what we do. Like, they understand the podcast and the premise behind it, but like a lot of people don't know that we don't make any money from it.
Yeah.
Like,
do you know what? That's one major thing. For everybody who's watching right now, we don't make any money from it.
Yeah.
Because it's probably the main thing that everyone asks me all the time when I see people is like, you're making cash from podcasts. No, we're kind of making the opposite, to be honest.
Yeah, this is technically on paper a business has been making a loss for about a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the podcast is more of a longer term play for us. You know, when we started it, we always said that we wanted it to be something that we were doing for a while. And it has paid dividends in other things like the people that we've met
100%.
and the relationships we've built with them and doing other work for them and whatever else. But I think at the end of the day, we just do something different for work. And even though that entails a lot more, like, you know, with entrepreneurship, it usually comes with like a bit of self-development. It usually comes with development in different other areas. We're with different people, sometimes older people, but at the end of the day, there isn't too much difference in the day-to-day that we wake up and we just work.
Yeah. 100%.
How did you guys go about starting the podcast and getting into all of this? Now, we actually did a full episode on this. I think it was episode 10 or no, it was episode like 12 or 13. We did like a whole 40-minute rundown about how we'd been to uni, but we'll speed run it. Both at uni, weren't really enjoying it. Wanted to do something online because we got Tatefied and just saw all this stuff online. So we were like, right, we'll run it. Started YouTube automation.
Yeah.
Tried making a bit of money there. Ran up a channel to like 115K. Couldn't get it monetized. Wanted to meet people, get opportunities.
Started the Telegram.
So we started this because we just thought, right, it's a good way for us to meet the kind of people that we wanted to meet and put us in that kind of sphere of people doing things online and different business models and opportunities. That's kind of how we went about starting it. But if you mean like actually, you know, starting it from a practical point of view, we found a studio in the city where we live, where we could hire the equipment and we didn't have to buy it outright. We went and just found people who we thought would be interesting to speak to. Like the majority of the guests that we had on early on were younger entrepreneurs. And obviously, like, a podcast's a great opportunity for them to get content, build their personal brand. And we thought, right, even though we haven't done anything before, people don't know who we are, we've not got personal brands, we've not run a business or anything, we are still providing them value by giving them a platform to speak on. So that was our kind of like entry into it, just get a studio, reached out to a ton of people, just sent them videos of us talking, inviting them on. And people are a lot more responsive than you'd think to things like that.
I think the main thing was as well, we just started it. We just did it.
Yeah.
Rather than, even though we spent probably a good, 6 months thinking of ideas and we wanted to start something, once we found the studio and we did everything, we were just like, all right, we're doing it. And we fucking showed up, Morley Pod, and it happened.
Yeah, I mean, we spent, how long did we spend just, thinking of name, logo?
God, it was like the beginning of the year when I was at uni till maybe September time? What was the date when we filmed the first episode?
3rd of October.
3rd of October, yeah.
A week short of a year from when we're recording this.
Yeah, yeah. So we started beginning of when we make the telly and all that stuff, the end of February. So it's a long time of just thinking of ideas and stuff.
But it's I feel like it really came to light for me about the fact that we hadn't actually done anything practical when I spoke to Lee about it. And I was like, yeah, I want to start a podcast. And he was like, right.
Do it.
You need to start a podcast then. So that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call, but it's always good to speak to someone outside, because I remember saying it out loud, feeling kind of embarrassed about it. He was like, well, right, what have you done? Have you got a studio? Have you got guests? Have you recorded anything?
It's
and it's no. So that's the reason we started it. That's kind of a speed run of the background. You can watch the full episode if you want to. We'll put the link in the description.
And I think the lesson learned from that is if you want to start something, just go ahead and send it, do it, innit?
100%. So this one is more tailored towards me, but I'm sure you'll be able to add something in there. What is the difference between copywriting and content writing? So it depends how boring you want me to be on this. So content writing in my head is more things like blog posts and things that are kind of sales assets and more build the brand, whereas copywriting is more direct response, you're writing for the purpose of getting someone to do something, whether that is go and watch a YouTube video or buy it, or sign up for a lead magnet or book a call or straight up buy. There's always kind of a reason behind the copy that you're writing. You're trying to handle objections, you're trying to kind of paint a bit of a vision, whereas with content writing it's much more educational, I think. And there's also a big difference if you're looking at starting a business. Copywriting versus content writing, I feel like it's a lot harder to sell content writing as a service because there isn't a direct kind of result that you can generate from it. If you would say to a business, I can write you 10 blog posts a month, the blog posts are just going to sit there dormant doing nothing and not really benefiting the business if no one sees them. Whereas if you were to pitch a business and say, right, I can write copy for you to your email list, this is their customers. You can actually generate a response because you can use tracking links and whatever. You can generate the business sales. So if it's a skill that you're looking at going with, then I would always recommend copywriting over content writing. But I think it's good that you have knowledge of both. I've written blog posts before. I got paid pretty handsome. I probably got paid more to write blog posts than I did in the short term than I have to write copy. But I think the kind of skill set that you develop from copywriting is much more valuable to a business than the skill of content writing. It's over to you.
I'll probably just leave you at that, to be honest. Not my area of expertise.
That's a boring explanation of that from me. Here's an interesting one. What is going on with the sudden emergence of everyone wanting to work for themselves? What are the main reasons for it? Is it a social media effect, potential to make more money, travel culture, etc.?
I think it probably comes down to something that a lot of people won't necessarily be happy about. But for us and for a lot of lads we know, I think it went back to the tater-fied business, to be honest. If we're kind of honest with ourselves, that is more or less where it started for nearly everybody that I know who started in the past, say, 3 years doing something. And it was kind of just that idea of financial freedom, what you've said in the question of being able to travel and being able to work. I don't know. I don't know if you agree. It's probably from all that.
Yeah, I think that definitely put a lot of things into light.
Yeah.
I remember the first kind of pivot I made was when I was going to go and study business at uni.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know, I'll blur it out if he doesn't want. I remember saying to me in the sixth form common room, why would you go and study for business from someone who has never owned a business?
Yeah.
And the penny kind of dropped for me there, and I was like, it's going against my belief systems here, but he's probably right. And I feel like unless you have a major passion for something or you're really good at something, most people go through school, or they'll go through a trade, or they'll go to university to get a qualification that can make them more money.
Yeah,
but
facts.
with like the light that got shone on having an online business or learning a skill that you can do online from anywhere, or however you want to package it, people just kind of realize that you can fast track that process of getting a qualification by just like actually practically learning how to do something.
Yeah.
And I think that was when it was like, so to go back to the question, the sudden emergence of everyone wanting to work for themselves, I think more people have realized that with a job, you are, even if it has bonuses or benefits or whatever, and I do think there's actually another question about this later on, and we'll talk more about it then, your income is capped.
Yeah.
And most people, if you look at the stats, I'm sure there's some stats out there somewhere that talk about how much people's like actual wages or salaries go up in, even just catching up with inflation. Most people's salaries don't even catch up with inflation.
Yeah.
And for you to get a 10K, a 20K, a 30K bonus at a job.
It's more unheard of in most places, to be
Yeah,
honest.
unless you are like actively trying to do so and actively in a company that like encourages and incentivizes you to go for those promotions, like you might be waiting 10, 15, 20 years for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people just realize that, even if I was to do something that earned me an extra 50 quid a day, it's another 1.5K a month, it's another like 12K plus a year. That's an instant bonus just from that. Just from 50 quid a day people sell like ebooks, PDFs, whatever. What are the main reasons for it? Is it the social media effect, potential to make more money, travel culture?
I think it's a mixture of all of those, to be honest.
Yeah, I think definitely the social media effect shone a light on the potential and the travel culture as well.
Yeah, I think once people got into it as well, they realised that it's not just like, oh, I'm not going to uni, now I'm doing this. It is something that's still going to take as much work and as much effort as going to uni. And potentially at the start, you're not going to have as much free time and travel, and it's something that comes a long way down the line rather than, just start and bang, you're there.
Yeah, I think it's also important to say that like the majority of the people who promote this kind of lifestyle have an incentive to do so, whether it's like they're selling their own product or
100%.
them perceiving that they have this lifestyle benefits them clients coming to them or network or like meeting other people. So like I think it's definitely important to take everything that you see with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, not all as it seems.
It's taken us 16, 17 months to get to a point where we're even able to comfortably move out.
Yeah,
what I mean?
100%.
And I'm sure we could have done it quicker. And there are people there are unicorns who will go and hit 10K in their first month or something ridiculous. But for the majority of people, it requires a lot of hard work, and you're not just going to be able to sell ebooks and go and live in Bali in 3 months' time.
Yeah,
I think there is a lot more to it. I think people also quite like the like not having to answer to someone.
I think that's my main thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've had a lot of problems with employers in the past.
Yeah, like not even in like a massively pejorative way. It's just kind of like, I think a lot of people, if they really embraced if they trusted their gut and embraced the fact that they are actually quite capable of doing these things.
Yeah, 100%.
Then they wouldn't feel the need to listen to as many people, and they wouldn't see these things online and think, I have to listen to this and this person. Like, I think if you actually trust your gut, most people are more than capable of working for themselves. But, from a young age, we have school. We have to answer to teachers. You have to answer to parents. And like anything, it's a habit.
I think it's hard
to be unlearned.
in a sense, because everyone's always used to having somebody to like hold themselves accountable to, whether it's the teachers or the tutors or whatever. And then when it comes to actually making the move of being like, all right, I want to do my own thing, it's 100% down to you, innit? You've got to hold yourself accountable. You've got to do everything yourself. It's a big switch up, really, innit?
And I do also think that like it's not for everyone. Like there are even some parts of like what I do where I prefer, like I'm finding it hard at the moment to build out my own offer and all my own systems, even though it's the exact process that I do. And I have done for like 15 other businesses. Yeah. So I quite like that, like, task. Like I'm more of an operator. And there are like, you can kind of be an employee or work with clients and not have to take on that responsibility of being like the CEO, like the boss.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a bad thing for everyone. And there is also another question that kind of touches upon a similar thing later on. So we'll go into that. This is one I'm going to pitch to you. So, how to stay consistent with the gym throughout winter and facing a lack of motivation?
So you know what? I'd say the first thing is, to a degree, find something that you enjoy to keep yourself healthy. Like, obviously, there is the gym, but there's also, you know, like for like say the boys, it might be like martial arts, go to the gym, do whatever. It doesn't have to be, I'm gonna, like, you see all these, mate, I don't want to say girls in particular, but you see a lot of people on socials that are like, right, you need to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you need to eat this, you need to eat this, you need to eat this. You need to find some kind of way that's like manageable for you, I think, is the main thing. Like, hypothetically, if I was going to design somebody like a plan or whatever, do something that works around what you do. Say you're at uni, say you're working a job, whatever. Don't do something that's going to be like not manageable at all. If it's going to be like, say, go 3 days a week, eat this amount when you can, but just have a plan, I think, is the main thing. Have a plan that works for you and that isn't going to be super insane and unmanageable. That's the main thing.
So, what about the throughout winter part?
I think winter is definitely a harder time to do it.
I feel like it's like the best time to do it and also the most difficult time to do it.
But I'd say also you've got that extra time, maybe, I don't know, it depends on the person over winter. But I'd say think about the long-term results as well. Like when we had Lee on the podcast, he said you can't make a change past, what is it? It's got to be 3 months,
90
is it?
days.
90 days, yeah. So about 3 months. You think about just putting a little bit of graft over winter, and by the next summer, you're going to be so happy with yourself. You're going to feel better. And to be honest, even through winter, if you're smashing it, you'll just feel better in yourself. I feel like for me, when I'm doing well with all the fitness stuff and when I'm super locked in, it kind of just makes every other element around me just be better, because I feel better, healthy. Obviously, I do it to a bit of an extreme sometimes with like the bulking and cutting, and like anyone who watches is probably seeing on my socials where I'm proper spamming it out. But I think that's such an extreme version of what you can do. Realistically, eat clean, have a good plan, and find something that works around your schedule and your life. And that's all you really need to do. Like the majority of people just struggle with the part of doing that week in and week out. And that's all I feel like that's the main thing, innit? Stick to a plan and find something that works for you.
I do also think as well, like with you, you'll be able to vouch for this, that like I used to, so let's say it was like a Monday, and I had a shit session and didn't hit my calories. I would let that blow up my entire week, and I'd be like, right,
100%.
This week's written off, like I'll reset next week. But like you'll be able to vouch for this in the fact that if you have a bad session or you have a day where you don't hit your calories or you don't sleep well or whatever, you don't let it explode your entire week or your entire plan. Like you've got to look at it from like the one day that you may miss or the one day that you may be busy with work or uni. Like take that day off, you know what I mean? Don't let it explode everything, and just make sure that you're back on it every other day. It's like Josh Rogan, the 95% thing. We'll come back to it again for every pod. But if you can hit it 95% of the time over a long term, you're easily going to get the result that you want.
Yeah, facts. And I think like the small wins matter as well. Like you'll see all this stuff online and you'll be like, oh shit, I've been hitting it consistently and I'm not seeing some mad change. But look at it from like a macro perspective of I've been hitting it consistently, and you are going to see a change at some point, but just keep doing it. I think the main thing.
What do you think about the motivation part?
I think staying motivated sometimes doesn't exist for me in a certain way. I think motivation and discipline are kind of the same thing when it comes to the gym. Because at the start, like I did not like going to the gym and eating and all that. It is, especially if you're just getting into it, is super long, to be honest, for a lot of people. But I think the main thing is, rather than thinking of it from a motivation point of view, is just try and build it into your routine. So say, all right, at this time every day I'm going to blah, blah, go to the gym. Maybe I'm going to eat this meal afterwards. And eventually you won't even think of it as, oh, like, why do I have to do this? You'll think of it as like, that's the next thing I'm going to do in this part of the day. I don't know if that's the same for you. Or
yeah, like I just started treating it like a meeting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss a meeting.
100%.
Like, just see it as work. Like if someone says, I've got to do something at this time, in the same way that if you were busy with a family event or something and you're like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Treating it like that and being like, no, like at this time from fucking 11:30 to 2:30 every day, we're traveling there, we're training, we're coming back and I'm eating. Like,
exactly.
That is blocked off my calendar. What about some ways to make it like more fun throughout winter? You know, it's dark, we've not got any sunlight in the UK, it's raining. Like what are some ways that you could make going to the gym more enjoyable and seem less like a chore?
I think that goes back to the way that you're training as well. Not everyone has to be training from a point of, I'm just going to be like stereotypical meathead training, doing this and that. Find things that you enjoy. Obviously online nowadays there's a massive like optimal bro culture. Find exercises you enjoy, find workouts that's semi-enjoyable, that's still going to be effective. And as I say, find a plan that's going to be like, just going to work for you. I feel like if you're not enjoying what you do to a certain degree, there's got to be some kind of factor of like working out and fitness that's either making a change or enjoyable, or you're not necessarily going to stick to it, especially when you're first starting and you don't have a coach or whatever, because obviously you're holding yourself accountable to go in and whatever. So I'd say the main thing is kind of find something that's enjoyable for you, because it's quite tailored person to person, isn't it? Like even with a lot of our friends, everybody kind of has a different, whether it's you're training bodybuilding or your football or whatever, it still comes down to people just train how they want to train, don't they?
Yeah, like we see people at the gym, you've got people training hypertrophy, you've got people training strength.
Exactly.
You've got people doing makeshift calf raises at your gym, because there isn't a calf raise machine for football, but it's like the point is that they're there.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you've got something, like, and I don't mean go off and do some fucking mad exercises. As long as you've got like a rough plan of, this is what I'm going to do, this is the kind of either muscle or this is the thing that I'm trying to aim for, work around it and find like a way of doing that you enjoy as a person. Otherwise it's going to be a lot harder to stick to it. Like even a lot of like, if you've got a coach or whatever, they'll probably ask you like what exercises you enjoy and what this, and do you know what I mean? So I think that's probably the main thing, to be honest.
Cool. I like that. Our advice and opinions on work-life balance. Now, you probably asked the two worst people about this.
Doesn't exist.
Because I think over the past year particularly, we have just had no work-life balance. It's like, I say that, very minimal work-life balance. But, you know, you've got to see everything as like a season. And we saw this season as just a season of building.
Yeah.
Like, we literally just got to sacrifice it now. And to be fair, it doesn't really matter. Like, majority of our friends are away at uni. We won't see any of them anyway. And if you do want to go out, you do want to go and see family, and you do want to go and see friends, the option is always there. But I think, you know, if you really want to, like, and this kind of goes back to the emergence of everyone wanting to work for themselves. Like, if you were to go to uni and you would have to work 3-4 years toward a degree, it probably would fly by. But in the same way that when you work for yourself, you're trying to fast track that process of increasing your income or learning or skills in a time frame of like a year. If you actually want to make it work. Because if you work for yourself for 3-4 years and you're not making any money, then you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to like speed run that process and make it way more intense for a certain period of time. And then you can look at like hiring people, taking a bit off your plate, always look at how you can systemize things, make things like easier, choose higher leverage things. But I think work-life balance in general, like I think it was something that, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but like I felt like I got it quite wrong last year and I was too dialed in.
Yeah,
like,
I know
rather than 95 and 5%, it was literally like 99 and 1%.
Yeah.
And it almost like, it's like what Croggan said, is that the 95% makes the 5% worth it. Like if you're just working all the time, then you are a slave to the work. And the whole reason that I feel like most people go and work for themselves or put in extra effort to train, you know, you train more than other people so that when you go out, you look better than other people. But if you never go out, then it doesn't
no one's going to see it.
Or like you work for yourself so you have more freedom and you have more control. But if you let your work, if you're a slave to the work, then the opposite has happened.
I think a good example of this is us both going away. Like we both went on holiday about like a week ago or so, and it was probably the first time where for both of us we've had like a week of literally just kicking back, not looking at the laptops, me not going into work, still training and that, but just having a week to just like
training.
Yeah, always training, but just having a week to just like reflect on everything, that all the mad shit that's been going on in past year. And that was kind of like my 5% or whatever. And it was just, to be fair, it was just nice to have a moment to just like chill for a minute, do you know what I mean? And sit back.
I spoke to Lee about this on a call that I had with him because I was like, I feel like my work-life balance has just got to a point where it's just way off and I'm just cooked. And like when I went away, what I realized is that it doesn't have to be like work for a year and take a week off. Like I feel like you can find moments for it in the day like in the morning or in
Yeah.
the evening to fucking just chill or like do something that just like relaxes your mind. Because what I noticed as well is on holiday, I was getting all these amazing ideas come to me and things were coming so much clearer about like the problems I was having in the day to day.
Yeah.
When you're in the day to day and you're constantly like waking up, boxing off tasks, you've got to do this today, this today, this today. You never get any time to step back and think like about the bigger picture, about something that you learn. So like for me at the moment, I spent way too much time fulfilling work.
Yeah.
And interestingly, my fulfilling work is like automating and doing things for other people's businesses. And I have all the skill sets to do that for my own business, but I haven't been doing it because I'm so in the day to day. So like now I'm working on systemizing my own shit, hiring people, making sure that like I'm picking the highest leverage thing, but you don't get that if you don't rest.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a good question to ask us because I feel like we're both kind of coming out of a phase now where we're like, right, we probably need to.
And I think, Joe, on top of that, like what you were just saying, having that rest, I think it's not feeling guilty in doing so.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
Because like between working, like I don't fully work for myself yet. I still work in security, run my business, and we have Progressus. And like I'd always feel like if I'm resting or I'm not training or something, I feel insanely fucking guilty.
Yeah.
I'd be like, there's so much shit I could be doing in this like couple hour period. Why am I not doing it? And as soon as I have, even if I'm like thinking about stuff of like sometimes we'll just jump on FaceTime. It'd be like 1 o'clock in the morning, be like, yeah, we need to do this, and this. But any times where I was like not generally fulfilling work or doing something, I just feel insanely guilty when sometimes you probably don't need to be honest.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is actually a really big one because like back to the point of working for yourself, where like you don't clock out, like even if you have done, let's say you fulfilled all your work for clients or you've done everything that was on your like urgent to-do list, there is literally hundreds of things that you could and probably should be doing. Like even if like you could be building a lead magnet, you could be doing outreach, you could be posting videos, you could be writing an email newsletter, you could be like sprucing up your LinkedIn. There's literally an infinite amount of things that you could be doing at all times. And yeah, don't feel guilty for not doing them if they're not priority. So are you ready for the new gaff, baby? Is what Leon says. So to put some context behind that, like we said earlier, we are moving out soon. So we've literally, like, cause we didn't go uni, didn't get a student loan, and we've not really been comfortable enough to move out. We've not moved out yet. Still living at home.
Back at yard. I mean, to be fair, I guess I moved out for a year, didn't I?
Yeah,
at
you
uni.
did.
But it would be so good to move out though, to be honest. Just us, especially like living together from a point of all this.
Yeah.
Churn content, churn work.
I feel like that will definitely help with the work-life balance stuff as well.
Yeah,
because,
yeah, 100%.
Like, we will always be together, and we'll probably have time in the evening when we can just sit and fucking brainstorm and chill, and it's not as, like intense.
100%. No, I think it'd be great.
Yeah,
it'd just be fun as well. To be fair,
I'm looking forward to building a sick setup.
Yeah,
it's just like a bit of a change. Like I feel like when you look at like the kind of big shifts that we've made in the past 2 years, they all come with like there's like a big kind of change, like when we started the podcast, or like when we, you know what I mean, when you dropped out of uni, and then it'll be like when we moved out. It's like a nice little timestamp to be like before and after.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. This is one for myself. One of my clients is being very nosy and asking how I went from 0 to 10K. So we did kind of touch upon this in the podcast with Callum. And to be honest, like I don't feel like a massive expert on it yet. I don't really feel like I'm qualified to give financial advice, but some of the things that I learned were you need, like whatever it is that you're doing, whatever business you're running, you actually have to be good at it. Like you cannot get away. You cannot listen to these guys that are saying, take 2 weeks to learn this and then you'll be all right. Like, yeah, you can take 2 weeks to get proficient in whatever it is that you're doing and understand it. But especially if you're doing anything client-based, people aren't going to pay you if you're not good. And the only way to get good is get experience and just put time into it. So, you know, that 0 to 10K sounds glamorous, but I worked for free from November until like March. And then from then I was working for basically below what I would be getting if I worked a minimum wage job. And then it just kind of exponentially grows because you actually have the experience. I think definitely charging more if you have a service-based business, or like not being shy in the beginning to like charge, like, so for example, if you were doing anything growth partner, like even if you're charging percentages, or like, you know, be a bit get a bit out of your comfort zone when asking for prices, because if people don't pay, they will always go down. If you're on a call with someone, they want something from you, they want you to solve their problem. And if you go in a bit too high, you'll learn the lesson, you'll get a bit better at sales at the same time. But I think just like, if I was to start again, I would do it all again. I would pick a skill, I would get good at the skill, I would find the best way that I could use that skill and offer it to the best people who would pay me the most, and I would just do it again. So.
Fire.
Drawbacks of the 9 to 5 and also the benefits.
I feel like, to be fair, I don't know if I can speak on it too much in a sense, because I still work, but I've never had a stereotypical 9 to 5, I guess, because I've always worked, any normal jobs I've worked, it's been nightlife. But I think the main thing that a lot of people will probably say with having a 9 to 5 is you have something guaranteed.
Yeah.
I think, for a lot of people, having that kind of thing where all right, every month I'm going to get this in my bank, this is going to happen, I have to show up from this time to this time each day, I don't have to necessarily log on out of hours. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but typically you might not have to, and you just have something guaranteed, which I think when starting your own business, you do not have any of that at all.
Yeah.
I know, even if you're on like a retainer basis with clients or you're cashing in at any point, you could get absolutely fucked.
Bro.
That's what I'm saying.
Drop you in a heartbeat. I think like that, yeah, definitely that thing about it being guaranteed. Like I remember the first month after I left my job, like looking at my bank account, and it was like the first or the second, and I was like, oh my God, there's no wage in there. Like my bank account hasn't gone up, I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
That's a scary feeling. I think the benefit is the guarantee. Obviously with things like, getting loans, if people want to get mortgages and whatever, it's harder to get if you don't have that kind of proof. I think people kind of like, not shit on 9 to 5s too much, but, and it probably sounds quite hypocritical because I wouldn't personally do it, but I would if there was a job that I could learn and earn under good people. Like I think the majority of things that people do in 9 to 5s is because they're working in a company that doesn't really offer any career progression, or they're just working like, if you're working in like a charity shop or something, or you're working in a clothes shop, or you're working, anything that doesn't really have kind of outlined career progression, you will be there until you decide to leave. Unless you become a manager or whatever, then you will be there until you decide to leave. Whereas there are people who go and get, I can think of plenty of people like Lion, right? One of the guests that we had on recently, Lion Glass, he's starting a new company that is like a business-to-business company where they're going to go in and train people to do sales. If I was a sales rep, I would fuck off whatever job I was doing and I'd go and work for him.
Yeah, 100%.
That's a job where you're learning a skill and there's clear career progression. Like you go from being an appointment booker to a closer to a sales manager to managing your own set of closers and setters, and like that can go all the way up to people will go into massive businesses and offer sales consulting, or they'll place their reps in companies, or start a recruitment company or anything like that. That's a skill that has clear progression and a job that will allow you to earn while you do it. So I think like it's not necessarily, this is why I think I get pissed off when people shit on trades, because there's such career progression.
Yeah, 100%. I was just going to say that. You go from being
an apprentice, and it's shit at the time if you don't enjoy it and you're not on that much money. But once you get qualified, boom, your pay goes up like £4. Boom, get qualified again, it's like 20. Boom, you get qualified again, and you get idiots who call you out, and you can charge them whatever you want. And then you go and start your own company because there's a scale and there's progression.
Yeah,
I think the drawbacks is when you are in a job that doesn't offer you that.
Yeah.
And I think the benefits, you get to clock out, you get to go home at 5 o'clock, you don't need to worry about it.
100%.
You've not got that guilt of feeling like you need to be doing other things. And the drawbacks probably just depends what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it goes back as well to like if you're fulfilled in what you're doing, even if you're not like a money-driven person and stuff. Are you getting fulfillment from what you're doing? Do you feel good doing it and all that? But I guess a lot of people don't have a choice as well at the same time. But
it's such an umbrella term as well. Like 9 to 5 encapsulates everything from stacking shelves at Tesco to being a corporate lawyer. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like there's so much disparity in that when it's not about the fact that you're working a job. It's just the fact that like, is there something there for you to go and do? Is there people? Are you getting training? Are they qualifying you? Are you learning skills?
Such a broad term, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Best takeaway from the Callum Carver podcast?
Do you know what? For me, I'd say the main thing, obviously, his main things like the skills to profit. But the one thing that I think is a takeaway for a lot of people is do something a lot. Like when you want to learn a skill or when you want to get good at something, or say like with you with copywriting, I think that's a good example how you were writing every day. I know you can speak about that in a minute. But I think just if you want to get good at something, do it a lot. Like I think same, it even goes back with like the gym thing. If you want to see progress, if you want to learn anything, I think just consistently doing something every single day, that's probably the main thing that I think is relatable in a sense of that's what will get you somewhere.
Yeah. I like we touched upon it in the Morley podcast in the first episode about like, take the meat and leave the bone.
Yeah.
And I like the way that Callum positioned it in like, obviously if you're watching this and you're watching us, you probably are on the side of the internet that is like everyone telling you need to make money, everyone telling you need to eat a fucking carnivore diet, everyone telling you about all the things that you need to do, or all the people that are positioning themselves as experts and whatever. And something that Callum touched upon that I liked is that you don't, just because you agree with someone on some of the things they say, A, doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything, and B, it doesn't mean that you have to be like them at all.
100%.
Like, you at the end of the day, you are you, and these people have gotten to where they are, and there's contrast between them enough because they are their own person.
Yeah.
They've, like, put their own spin on personal branding. It's like whenever you see people like Joe Daniel Dalen, the editor.
Yeah.
He brought out that editing style of, the kind of the quotes and the fast editing and the font and everything. That's him. When I see that, that's him. And then you see everyone else copying him. And my first thought isn't that's a really good reel. My first thought is you've just copied him.
Yeah.
Like, because you're trying to be someone else. Whereas like the people that find their own style, like Iman with the old money, Tate with the Bugatti, like all these people, they almost have like, they are like when you think of the term personal brand, if you break it down into what a brand is in normal business, it's just like the association that you have with a company. Like when I think of Apple, when I think of this laptop, you think like
white space and all that.
White space, you think Steve Jobs, you think everyone's got one. It's like the associations that you make.
100%.
And the big personal brands, people like Iman, Tate, whoever else, even like Goggins, Huberman, all these guys, all these big guys, you see them. And when you see them, you don't just think of like Ty Lopez, you think of everything that is associated with them.
Yeah.
And those things are only important because they are associated with them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a big thing, especially when you're starting out in either like a brand, a business, or social media. I think not trying to be someone else, but just having good takeaways and being like, all right, I like what this person has to say, or I like how this person does. I'm going to take away that, apply it to myself, but I'm not going to replicate it. I think it's more like what you were saying. I think it's take away, not replicate, more or less.
And you can kind of get away with it online as well. Because if you think about think about this at school, right?
Yeah.
If you had a friend who dressed a certain way, like liked this game, dressed this way, like had certain things that they said, and you were in a smaller environment and you were copying how they dress, what they say, and like the Xbox games they play, everyone would take the piss out of you for sucking up to them. But for like some reason online, it's okay to like get away with it because you're like trying to be like this cool person. At school or in a smaller environment, people would just be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, just be yourself, innit?
Yeah, you're just following them around. Do you know what I mean? People take the piss like, "Oh, you're getting married" or whatever.
You know, I'm just going to say as well, this is the first time I've had sparkling water and I'm actually quite enjoying it.
It's banging.
It's fucking that. It might be a changing point.
Should we take a little break and see if we've got any more questions on the thing?
Yeah, go on then.
What has been your favourite episode so far and why? You've got to pick one.
I was literally just about to say like... low key, I want to say the Krogan episode.
Yeah.
Because, and it sounds really ironic from me because I like all the gym stuff.
Yeah.
But just from the pure fact that one of us uses the 95 to 5% thing that he said probably every single episode. And I use that day to day. Like, that was probably my favourite 4 seconds of a podcast that we've had because it's so, like, applicable.
That is super
purely because, well, actually, obviously, he said a lot of good stuff, but purely from that's a big takeaway that I use all the time as well.
Yeah. Do you know what? That is a good one. I'm trying not to have like recency bias because I always feel like, do you know the ones that we've done most recently are obviously the ones that are like in my
think
head
of,
most.
yeah.
I reckon
It's a hard question, you know.
I reckon the Lee one.
I feel like that was a big point for you as well.
Yeah,
in terms
I
of
reckon
having
the Lee one, just because like, do you know when I actually watch it back?
Yeah.
There was so much sauce in there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I feel like I don't appreciate it as much because I speak to him every week. But like,
It was
when I
a
was
sick
actually
pod.
watching it, like everything he was saying was so dialed, and that was a good pod. And a close second's got to be Lion. The Lion pod was so good.
I was
because
just an
he's
insane pod.
Such an interesting, like a genuinely interesting man, like a real role model, and like that. I feel like they were the people like Lee and Lion. Like, obviously, we speak to the young entrepreneurs, but people like Lee and Lion are the people that I really feel like I learn the most from when we speak to them. Like, it's good bouncing ideas off peers and being able to meet people and have chats, but to meet these, like, older guys, I feel like...
I mean, to be fair, we've had a few good older...
Levi, Ollie, I'm not going to say that Ollie's old, to be fair.
Yeah, he won't be happy with that.
But, like, Ollie's obviously a bit older and has...
Johnny and Asif as well.
Johnny and Asif. Johnny and
Asif, both of those are fire podcasts.
Yeah, Johnny and Asif. Yeah, when I think about it, like I love having it with peers, but like the ones with the older guys are sick. We just get to pick their brain.
It's like speaking to your knowledgeable uncle or something like that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
so
when we did the Johnny pod, I was
like,
like, when we did the pod with him, I was like, it felt really like directed at us too. Some of the stuff he was saying.
Like we booked him for a one-to-one coaching call.
It's very good.
Since it's literally a week short. It's 26th of September and we filmed the first one on the 3rd of October. How do you feel that you've grown the most since the first episode?
Oh, God. In how so? What, like in elements of life? Or just all around, you know? I feel like... I don't want to say I feel like it's made me age a little bit, but that is kind of how it feels to a certain degree. I think it's just because like the amount of like knowledge and whatever and like different people's lives and just stuff that you've absorbed and that we've absorbed in the past year has just been so insane that I feel like it kind of, for me, it's made me a more grounded person, I'd say, to be honest. Like, not necessarily like super chill or whatever, but just hearing stuff. I don't know, actually. I need to think about it, but...
Bro, I feel like it's so hard to like remember. I saw Chris Williamson talking about this. Like, do you know, obviously in the day-to-day, like you right now are you today.
Yeah,
but it's hard to remember like what you thought about and like what your beliefs were and how you felt a year ago.
Yeah.
Because like you almost can't get into that, like you can't imagine being in that state now.
Like, bro, it's really hard to think about
podcast,
it.
bro, we were shitting ourselves.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, it was like the questions we were
such
asking,
a jobby podcast.
The way we asked it, like we were actually shitting ourselves. And I feel like even just that, like just being able to speak to people better is probably mine.
Do you know what? That is very true. I've found that as well. Speaking to people.
Yeah. Being a better listener, being able to like get your ideas across better and like actually having to think about things as well. Because like sometimes we'll say things and like, do you know, if you've ever asked a question to a guest and they say like, well, not quite, it makes you realise like, do you know, if you ever have those moments where like the guest will be like,
no.
I think we asked I asked Krogan a question, he said no. I remember asking Jack a question and he was like, nah, I disagree. That's when you kind of like learn the most, but like all those times I just didn't communicate my idea well. So like I feel like that's definitely a big one.
I think it teaches you to like, or it's taught maybe rather than to argue, to like discuss in a sense of when like what you've just been saying about people saying no and stuff like that and articulating, like it's forced us to be able to articulate how we feel and whatever a lot better than rather just being like, ugh.
And do you know what? One thing as well, like not necessarily how either of us have grown, but like probably one of my biggest takeaways is that everyone who we've had on, like we have had guests on with like over 1 million followers, right? And when you meet them and you sit down with them and you shake their hand and you have coffee with them and they're helping you set up, you just realise all these guys on the internet.
It's normal.
Just normal people, bro. Like, they are just normal people who are just able to switch it on when they need to and just get shit done.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, just super normal.
Well, it's like
never fucking put anyone on a pedestal as like, oh my God, they're so incredible, because they are probably just a normal person like you.
Well, it's even like, do you know, like when we were at gym the other day and when I ended up on call with Boxer,
Oh, yeah.
And then afterwards, I was thinking, like, a year ago, if I spoke to this person, or a couple of years ago, I would have been fucking, like,
Sent it to the
completely
group chat.
fanboying on my phone, going mental. But now, after this, you do just realise, like, everybody's just normal dude, just doing something special.
And after this, we'll wrap it up. Well, this is quite a cool one. What is an opinion on the internet that you disagree with the most?
I might let you take this one first.
An opinion on the internet that I disagree with the most. It's a tricky one. Like, a few things come to mind, but it's not necessarily anything that doesn't have merit. It's more just like, I feel like it doesn't work for me. Okay, so here's like a business one that it's not that like I disagree with it the most, but it's the one that's kind of popped into my head right now that I'm going to go with, is like artificial networking. Let me explain.
Yeah, go on.
Do you know like networking groups or like networking group chats, or you should join this for like the community or whatever? I feel like that is it's blown way more out of proportion than it should be. Because when I think about the people who I've met, or like the people who I've networked with in the past year, who've brought me the most value, who I've built the best relationships with, who have given me the most opportunity, they're all people we've met in person.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Like, there is pretty much like, there is maybe, I think Callum's probably the only person who I've met online who I've like met, who's properly who gave me value before I met him in person, and we still ended up meeting him in person. But I think like you need to be with people and see how they are and learn how to act. And I feel like when people like, you need to get a better network around you, I think it is like overhyped.
Yeah, I think especially online.
Maybe I'm so wrong. Maybe there's people who will watch this and just be like, yeah, he doesn't fucking know what he's talking about. But just from my experience, when you meet people and you actually build a relationship with them, it's so much better.
Do you know what? It's mad that we're talking about this, because I had this exact conversation with someone the other day, and this was about like events management and getting contracts and stuff in like kind of like nightlife industry and stuff. And we're saying how nowadays everybody just kind of sends emails, phone calls, whatever. But like going back to the old fashioned way of literally walking to a place, shake their hand, speak to them, and like people appreciate that now so much more because of the mad surge of just nobody wants to do anything in real life anymore.
Yeah.
No one wants to just go and like knock on door, open, like go and speak to the person, say whatever, rather than being like give them a call or send them a really long email. Being face to face with someone is so different to just having like a little chat online, I think. And like the value you can gain on both sides, and like being able to, I don't know, kind of know what each person is like makes such a big difference.
Just like, at the end of the day, even there are some people who I've met online through like groups or whatever, and I'm never like messaging them, you know what I mean? Messaging back and forth, having a conversation. Like,
So, I mean,
I'll call them at least, you know what I mean? I'll
Yeah,
at
yeah,
least
yeah.
call them so you get a bit of like relationship. But I also think that like most of the problems that people have are not problems with their network.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, I
they are
agree.
problems with you. Like, you don't, like, maybe having a network of people holding you accountable will help, but you don't need like this group of guys and just like whatever. You just kind of, you can do it yourself. I feel like it's kind of cope to say that you need like a network around you. Like you do when you get on, but that comes naturally if you're just an okay person.
Yeah, I think so. I think even with the pod, that's exactly how it's gone though, hasn't it? Like as we've gone, it's kind of grown. We've not just been like,
We want to online interviews.
Yeah.
We didn't want to because that's the point.
We haven't gone and joined like podcasting networking groups. You know what I mean?
Right. That is all the questions that we got sent. So we're just going to leave it there. I'm not even going to outro. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to cut. Bye.